Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Natira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paralaksha Ashtuta Sadasya Srimad Islamic Section Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paralaksha Ashtuta Sadasya Srimad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai अनंत कोटि वैष्णवृंद की जय श्री नवाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर की जय प्रेम से गो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्री वैशाली गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपकुंड श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय श्री मायापुर धाम की जय श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी देवी की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णवृंद की जय श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय ग्रंथा श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय इस्कॉन वर्तमान गुरुवंद की जय समाहित भक्तवृंद की गौर प्रेमानंद हरि हरि all glories to the assembly. It's all glories to the assembly. It's all glories to the assembly. It's all glories to the Guru and Sikh Gaurang all glories to Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naishtihi. Welcome to this Friday morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we are discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 4 chapter 22 text 12. Swagatam Bodhvija Shreshta Yat Pratani Mumukshavaha Charanti Shraddhaya Dhira Bala Eva Brihanti Cha Swagatam Bodhvija Shreshta Yat Pratani Mumukshavaha Charanti Shraddhaya Dhira Bala Eva Prahanti Cha Swagatam Chas Vijashreshta Yat Pratani Mumukshavaha Charanti Shraddhaya Dhira Bala Eva Prahanti Cha. Translation Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Maharaj Prithu offered his welcome to the four Kumaras, addressing them as the best of the Brahmanas. He welcomed them, saying, from the beginning of your birth, you strictly observed the vows of celibacy, and although you are experienced in the path of liberation, you are keeping yourself just like small children. The specific importance of the Kumaras is that they were brahmacharis, living the life of celibacy from birth. They kept themselves as small children, about 4 or 5 years old, because by growing into youth, one's senses sometimes become disturbed, and celibacy becomes difficult. The Kumaras therefore purposefully remain children, because in a child's life the senses are never disturbed by sex. This is the significance of the life of the Kumaras, and as such Maharaja Prithu addressed them as the best of the Brahmanas. Not only were the Kumaras born of the best Brahmana or Brahma, but they are addressed here in Dvija Shreshtaha, the best of the Brahmanas, on account of their being Vaishnavas. Also, as we have already explained, they have their Sampradaya, disciplic succession, and even today the Sampradaya is being maintained and is known as the Nimbarka Sampradaya. Out of the 4 Sampradayas of the Vaishnava Acharyas, the Nimbarka Sampradaya is one. Maharaja Prithu specifically appreciated the position of the Kumaras because they maintained the Brahmacharya vow from the very beginning of their birth. Maharaja Prithu, however, expressed his great appreciation of Vaishnavism by addressing the Kumaras as Vaishnava Shreshtaha. In other words, everyone should offer respect to a Vaishnava without considering his source of birth. Vaishnava Jati Buddhi. No one should consider Vaishnava in terms of birth. The Vaishnava is always the best of the Brahmanas, and as such one should offer all respects to a Vaishnava, not only as a Brahmana but as the best of the Brahmanas. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagata Mahyam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Davarakamanam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sakarjatam Sagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sivam Satvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanushte Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kupasnudubhyavicha Patitanam Bhavneva Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Om Karoli Vachari Pangam Yatkapata Maham Bande Shri Gurum Dhanata Mandavado Shri Chaitanya Vishwara Hare Krishna. So we see in this today's sloka, also in the previous slokas, we see Prithu Maharaj glorifying the Kumaras when they come to see him. So in this particular sloka, Prithu Maharaj is glorifying the Kumaras as the best of the Brahmanas, and also because the Kumaras were born from Lord Brahma, so he is also a Brahmana. We'll try and understand some important points in this sloka today. First thing is that a proper welcome is to be given to anyone who comes to see. This was a system that was prevailing even in the yesteryears. Even during Mahabharata time we see that even if an enemy comes, he is offered a seat and we talk to them forgetting about the enmity. So a proper welcome is always to be given to anyone, irrespective of who it is. And here, the Kumaras were very important guests because first thing is they came to see Prithu Maharaj by the mercy of Lord Krishna. Second thing is they were lifelong celibates. They were brahmacharis right from their birth. And third point is that they were very, very great devotee of the Lord. So there are different types of brahmacharis. The one is called a Naishtika brahmachari, and such brahmacharis they remain celibate for lifelong. And another example, Kumaras are one who remained celibate throughout their life. And the other example is that of the Bhishma Deva. Bhishma Deva was a lifelong celibate, and he left his body also as a celibate soul. It is very important
Hare Krishna
in terms
Prabhu.
of spiritual life for one to
Hare
be
Krishna Prabhu.
maintain celibacy. We'll discuss
Mhm.
this a little more. The other type of the brahmacharis are one who remain as brahmacharis for some time, and then after some time they decide to get married, and then they get married. They are called upapurva brahmacharis. So the main reason that the souls are bonded into this material world is attraction between man and woman. Now, Shastras does not prohibit union between man and a woman, but definitely prohibits union between a man and woman for sense gratification. Man can have a union with woman for creating progeny which are God conscious, which are Krishna conscious. One can have any number of children, but then that is what sex life is meant for, not for sense gratification, which happens across the board today in this material world. So the Kumara's background is that when Brahma wanted to create progeny, he created the Kumaras first, and then he asked them to take over the ruling of the kingdom. The Kumaras, they were very, very mature even right from their very beginning. And they knew that material world is entanglement. So they didn't want to get entangled in this material world, and they said that, they told Lord Brahma that they are not interested in ruling over the kingdom and creating further progeny. Ruling over a kingdom means it's a king's job, is a passionate job, and a king has to have wives. Many those days they used to have many wives, and they didn't want to get married. So they told Lord Brahma that no, we don't want to get married. So we don't want to take up the responsibility of ruling a kingdom. Brahma got very, very angry on them, but of course their reasoning was for a higher purpose, that is for self-realization. And it was from Brahma's anger that Lord Rudra was born. So this is the background of the Kumaras. So they realized that if we become older, there is a very possibility of the senses being agitated. You see, when the children are small, they are very, very innocent. But as they grow old and they become youth, at that time their senses become agitated. The Kumaras realized this, so they thought that they would remain as children throughout their life, so that they are not agitated by sex desire. Now, though the Kumaras were already liberated souls, still they thought that it is better that they remain as young boys, so that their senses are not agitated. Now, also they are exalted personalities. One is that they were born from Lord Brahma, who is also the original secondary creator, or the creator of this material world. And the another aspect is that the Kumaras have their own sampradaya. Now there are 4 authorized sampradayas which are mentioned in the Padma Purana. That is our sampradaya, which is Brahma Madhava Gaudiya sampradaya. Which is a part of the Brahma sampradaya. Then there are many other sampradayas in Brahma sampradaya also. Then there is the Sri sampradaya, which comes through Goddess Lakshmi. We see that generally people in the south are from the Sri sampradaya, and they have their base in Srirangam. And the third one is Rudra sampradaya. The knowledge, some purpose of the sampradaya is for the knowledge to flow through a proper disciplic succession. So in Rudra sampradaya, knowledge flows through Lord Shiva, and then the last one is the Kumar sampradaya. The knowledge flows from Krishna to the 4 Kumaras and so forth. And each sampradaya is led by Acharya. The Kumar sampradaya is led by Acharya called Nimbarka Acharya. So that is what is mentioned in the purport here. So these are authorized sampradayas, and if someone wants to progress in spiritual life, they must take shelter of one of these sampradayas. Today we find that there are many sampradayas. Every day new sampradayas coming up, and people don't progress in spiritual life. In fact, there are many cheating sampradayas which we discussed a few classes before. So the Kumaras wanted to remain celibate, and they knew that sex life is something that will keep entangled in the material world. And Srila Prabhupada in one of his lectures mentioned that if one is celibate, already he is liberated to 50%. That means the most binding factor for a soul to be conditioned in this material, bounded in this material world, is that attraction between man and woman, and the form is sex. The other opposite side of it is that the semen of a man is a very wonderful substance in the body, and instead of being discharged, if it is taken up to the brain, which the yogis try to do, it helps one in building a lot of good memory. That is why we see that those who are very celebrated, they have a very good memory. And the yesteryears, students would normally hear once and then remember the instructions without having to read books again. This was, of course, Kandi Yuga, very rare to find such souls. And if one is able to maintain his celibacy, it increases memory also, and increases the span of life also. And one of the reasons for which we see today the lifespan of the present generation reducing day to day, as in the previous generation they used to live 100 years. Now if somebody is touched 70 or 80, they are very great souls because they have not indulged much in sense gratification. And we see people leaving their bodies in 50s and 60s and even 30s and 40s, because sense gratification is one of the most important factors that reduces the span of lifespan. So for that, celibacy is required. Similarly, for women also, if they are celibate, their memory is also maintained at a good level. So the brahmacharya is so powerful. There is a quote in Bhagavatam 9th canto where it says, there was a son of a Manu called Prasadra. Now he took a vow to protect cow protection throughout his life, even at night. So this Prasadra was very, very celibate, and one day a tiger chased the cow which was lying on the ground. Now the cows were all gathered together. As soon as the tiger came, all the cows got scattered here and there. So when the tiger caught hold of a cow, Prasadra immediately heard the screaming and picked up his sword, running to kill the tiger. It was night time, and he mistook the cow for a tiger and killed the cow instead of the tiger. Now the tiger ran out of fear, but the cow died. Now, though it was not done knowingly, it was done unknowingly. Vashishta was a great sage at that time. He cursed Prasadra to be born as a Shudra instead of a Kshatriya. So Srila Prabhupada explains that in such cases the priest can give some means of atonement, but Vashishta was in the lower mode that time, and he cursed Prasadra, who took the curse in the right spirit. Prasadra did not even ask for apology. Rather, he took a vow of brahmacharya, and it was approved at that time by all the sages at that time. So Prasadra became a man with controlled senses, and being pleased with that, he focused fully on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Got pure devotional service, he became a great saint, and then entered a forest where there was fire and reached the spiritual world. So this was a background of Prasadra, who out of his celibacy, he became very, very powerful at one point of time. The other important point is in this today's sloka is that generally we'll try to understand the importance of celibacy, the difference between Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. In this celibacy, it is said that those who remain celibate in the brahmacharya thing, particularly the Brahmanas, they reach a state of Brahman. As you know, that Lord can be realized in three phases, that is Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. And this Brahman realization is the first stage of realization at which one understands the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, which is not the ultimate realization, but normally Brahmanas remain at this Brahman platform, and they have a certain amount of understanding about Lord, but at the same time they are not fully well versed in terms of devotional service to the Lord, which is the constitutional position of any living entity. There are two examples in the Shastras. One example is about Krishna's pastime with the Brahmana's wives, which is mentioned in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. It so happened that when Krishna and Balarama were in the Vrindavan forest, at that time Krishna and the Gopas, the cowherd boys who were accompanying Krishna and Balaram, they said that they were feeling hungry. So Krishna and Balaram told some of the cowherd boys to go and ask the Brahmanas. Now these Brahmanas generally are well versed in chanting mantras, but many times they don't know who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead also, and they also are worshippers of demigods, and many times they think that demigods and the Lord, Supreme Lord, is one and the same. So in this case, the Brahmanas were performing some Vedic yajna to ascend to the heavenly planets. And Krishna knew this because he is situated in everyone's heart as Paramatma. So he told the cowherd boys to go and approach first the Brahmanas. He didn't ask them to approach anyone else. So when they came and approached the Brahmanas, they said that Krishna and Balaram are hungry and the cowherd boys are also hungry. So they are expecting some charity in the form of some food. The Brahmana said, no, no, we are actually very, very busy performing yajna, and now we can't give anything until the yajna is completed. So the cowherd boys went back to Krishna and told him this is what they told and this is the reply they got. Then Krishna advised this Brahmana, these cowherd boys, don't get disappointed. After all, in the material world, sometimes you may get some charity, sometimes you may not get anything at all. So don't have to get disappointed. But you do one thing. Now you go and approach the Brahmana's wives. So based on Krishna's instructions, the cowherd boys went and told the Brahmana's wives that Krishna and Balaram are herding the cows and calves in the forest and they are hungry. So they would like to have some food. The moment the Brahmana's wives heard this, immediately they left whatever duties they were performing at their home. Oh, they said, oh, Krishna is asking, that means we must give him the best possible thing. They did not bother about the duties that they were performing at their home. Some were taking care of their husband, some were taking care of their children. But as soon as they heard that Krishna was asking for it, immediately they left all their duties, took whatever they had with them, and they all went and gave the foodstuff to Krishna. This is the mode of a devotee of the Lord, and that is why they are addressed as Vaishnavas. We'll understand a little more about these Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So, the point in this particular pastime is that ultimately Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedescha Sarvam, Ahameva Vedyo. That means the purpose of knowing Vedas is to know me. If after the Brahmanas are supposed to be well versed in the Vedas, so if after studying the Vedas, they did not know, Krishna also says, Bhoktaram Vigna Tapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwara. He is the enjoyer of all sacrifices. But the so-called Brahmanas were performing the Vedic sacrifice, they were performing a sacrifice to please demigods, so that they can go to some heavenly planets. And this is a situation you find even today. Many people host yajnas, they perform yajnas, many pujaris. They call themselves as Brahmanas, but they are not aware that ultimately the enjoyer of the sacrifice is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So they please the demigods and offer the demigods the sacrifice and thinking that they can go to heavenly planets. And this is their level of understanding even though they have studied the Vedas. So the point is that the Brahmanas at that time, this pastime of Krishna, they refused to give anything to Krishna, saying that they are doing a Vedic yajna. But the moment the wives of the Brahmanas were asked for the same thing, they immediately left everything, and whatever they had, they went and took it to Krishna and Balaram. So that is why this is a devotee of the Lord, and that is why they are called Vaishnavas. So this is one important factor or difference between a Brahmana and Vaishnava. Now, there is another example that took place during Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura's time. That pastime is that during his time, when he was a young boy, there were many Brahmanas who were against non-Brahmanas chanting the holy name of the Lord, non-Brahmanas taking initiation and so forth. So Srila Bhakti, at that time, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura was also there. There were many groups who were fighting among themselves, and the main purpose of the fight was that mostly many claimed that non-Brahmanas cannot be called as Brahmanas. But we know that Brahmanas are not born by birth but by qualities. Even today we see many call themselves as Brahmana's son, but they work in IT company, and the moment they start working, they are nothing less than Shudras. Anybody who works for money is a Shudra. So even if somebody is born in a Brahmin family, he claims to be a Brahmana, but actually he is a Shudra because he is working for money. So in this way there was a fight between many groups, and at that time Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura was very well versed in all these things. Unfortunately became sick. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura, he knew about this and he approached Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura that let me go and address the issues with them. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura immediately agreed, and he said, you are the right person who are well versed in these subjects, and he sent Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura, and it was a 2-day process. The whole gathering was addressed for 2 days. So the first day it is said Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura spoke very highly about the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas, after hearing this, they were all very, very pleased. The next day everyone again came, and the next day Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakura spoke very highly about Vaishnavas, and he gave a lot of reference from scriptures stating that this is the reason Vaishnavas are considered to be superior than Brahmanas. So we go back to the same example of Krishna's pastime with the Brahmanas and his wives. The Brahmanas were, even though they are supposed to be well versed in knowledge, in fact, one of the duties of the Brahmanas is Yajan, Yajan, Padan, Padan, Dhana, Pratigraha. They are supposed to be well versed in scriptures. They should know that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and supreme personality of Godhead. And they are supposed to preach this, give this knowledge to the others, that is the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. But the Brahmanas were ignorant. On the other hand, the Brahmanas' wives, they were all illiterate. They didn't know anything, but all they knew was that Krishna is Supreme Lord and He is the enjoyer of everything. So the moment they heard about this, they immediately ran after with whatever they had and gave it to Krishna and Balaram. So that is why devotional service is the topmost aspect. Rendering devotional service is very important, and the Brahmanas' wives were called Vaishnavas because Brahmanas generally are ignorant of their duty as a servant of the Lord, and whereas the Brahmanas' wives, they were engaged in devotional service. They wanted to render service to the Lord. So the difference between a Brahmana and a Vaishnava is that a Brahmana may reach up to the stage of Brahman platform, but Vaishnavas always believe in rendering service to the Supreme Lord. This is one of the main differences. One important aspect in Brahmacharya is that one should not, there are 8 aspects it is said, that is also given in Srimad Bhagavatam. One should not think of woman, one should not speak about sex life, one should not dally with women, one should not look lustfully at women, one should not talk intimately with women, one should not decide to engage in sex, one should not endeavor for sex life, and one should not actually engage in physical activity. So one who observes all these is a real brahmacharya, and he does not even think about a woman. It is said in Srimad Bhagavatam itself, Srila Prabhupada mentions that one should not sit exclusively even with one's own mother or a sister or a daughter, because the senses are so agitated by sitting with a woman other than one's wife that one's senses can be disturbed. And we see today that people don't mind having sex with their daughters or with their mother or their sisters also. So what Srila Prabhupada had written in Srimad Bhagavatam is factually proven to be true. And Brahmacharya is not anything to do with just the clothes itself, by wearing a saffron. Even a grihastha who is wearing white can also be celibate. It is to do basically with a change of heart. The Lord has created it, He has made a very scientific system. So a grihastha's life also depends on the success of a brahmachari. But after becoming grihastha, one is responsible for maintaining the other systems, because only a grihastha has the ability to earn and support the ashramas. Now, in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a quote which says, one of the acharyas, Sampradaya Sridhara Swami, he has mentioned that the Brahmanas are born in the mode of goodness. The Kshatriyas are born of a mode of goodness and passion. The Vaishyas have a combination of passion and ignorance, and the Shudras are in the mode of ignorance. So just as the 4 orders are born from face, arms, thighs and feet the lords of the universal form. Similarly, the brahmacharis are generated from the heart of the Lord. The householder are generated from the loins of the Lord. The vanaprasthas are generated from the Lord's chest, and the sannyasis are generated from his head, from the Lord's head. So the first ashrama is brahmacharya ashram, and that is the beginning of one's life. And the basic principle is to observe celibacy. Today, the quality of people in general has come down because the ashrama has got diluted in every respect, and people live like cats and dogs. Even students in their schools and colleges have exposure to sex life. Whereas spiritual life means purity, and that comes with the power of celibacy. Four important factors of religion are austerity, mercy, truthfulness, and cleanliness. And cleanliness can be attained with the help of celibacy. The brahmacharis are also supposed to live in a temple in an atmosphere that is surcharged with spiritual activities. That is why we will see that mostly brahmacharis stay. In the yesteryears, brahmacharis used to go to Gurukul and study under the spiritual master. Now the Gurukul system practically does not exist, but wherever temples are there, facilities are there, the brahmacharis stay in the temple, ashram. And it is their purity of the brahmacharis that invokes attraction of common man visiting the temple. Common people come to the deity and they see the beauty of the deity. The brahmacharis preach to them about the importance of deities and spiritual life, etc. So that requires a certain amount of purity, and that comes from celibacy. During Srila Prabhupada's time, most of the disciples were brahmacharis, and later they became great sannyasis. And even in the case of some grihasthas, like Amrisha Dasa, etc., they became good grihasthas. Another example in our own this thing is that Gurujana Prabhu, he and his wife, I forgot his wife's name, they were actors and actresses, but when they met Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada asked them to leave everything and go to Hong Kong and preach. Even today, husband and wife are preaching. They are perfect grihasthas. Also, to lead a successful grihastha life, one has to be a very successful brahmachari. Otherwise, grihastha life will also be spoiled. And the main focus of the grihastha ashrama is also Krishna, for keeping Krishna in the center. That Krishna is the proprietor and he is the center of all activities. For the grihasthas, the home becomes an ashram when the members sit together, gather together and hear and chant. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was himself a great example. He showed by example how to live in each of the ashramas. When he was a brahmachari in the initial stages, he would pass by the Ganges, and he was well versed in Vedic knowledge, and he used to engage all the other students in discussions, and in fact he used to argue also. And he was so scholarly that he could turn the right statements into wrong and wrong statements and right and defeat anybody. And when young girls would come near him, he would change his path. So this is how he was maintaining his celibacy also. He would gather all the students at the bank of Ganges and discuss with them. When he was a grihastha, he would welcome all the sadhus to his house very regularly and give in charity. This is the duty of a grihastha. And we see in the example of the pastime that has discussed about the Brahmanas also, Srila Prabhupada has given a quote that the duty of a grihastha is to give in charity. So during the yesteryears, the grihasthas, what they would do is, before they honor prasadam, their duty was to come outside of their house and shout and ask if anybody is hungry. And if anybody has not had their food, the grihasthas have to first feed them, and then only after feeding them they can have their food. But in the case of the pastime that I mentioned about the Brahmanas and with Krishna, they didn't understand that their role as necessary, being a Brahmana, that they should give in charity. So this is where many times Brahmanas differ. There are some more important points. The brahmacharis generally don't talk with women very much, and it is also mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that one should not associate with women unnecessarily, but one can go about begging alms if it is required. That's why it is said a brahmachari should be very careful in associating with men who are attached to women also. That means if there are men who are, we see many materialistic men, they are womanizers. So it is said that one should not associate with such people also. So the Kumaras, they wanted to keep themselves as small children so that they are not Maya, so that Maya doesn't attract them in the form of sex life. Putuma Maharaj, he expressed great appreciation for Vaishnavism in this particular sloka by addressing the Kumaras as Vaishnava Shreshtaha. That means they are the best of the Vaishnavas. That means Puthu Maharaj is glorifying the Kumaras as greatest of the Vaishnavas. The Vaishnavas are not designed by birth. One should not in fact consider a Vaishnava by birth. A Vaishnava is always the best of the Brahmanas, and one should give all possible respect to the Vaishnavas. In fact, they should give respect to everybody, but particularly to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. One should give all possible respect. There is a quote in Padma Purana which Srila Prabhupada regularly quotes in his classes. I'll read the translation. The person who considers the deity of the Supreme Lord to be dead matter made of stone, wood or metal. That means one should not consider deity to be made of any wood or metal. Or a spiritual master who is an eternal associate of the Lord to be an ordinary man who is prone to die. One should not consider a spiritual master to be an ordinary person who also dies like us. Or a Vaishnava to be coming from some caste. That means a Vaishnava does not have any caste. Vaishnava is a Vaishnava. He does not belong to a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishnava or Shudra. Or the water which washes the feet of the pure devotee or the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be ordinary water. Although such water has the potential to destroy all evils in the age of Kali. So Charnamrit is what we call, which is water that is washed the lotus feet of the Lord. So somebody thinks that it's ordinary water, then consider the holy name of the Lord as dedicated to him, which are able to destroy all the sins to the ordinary sound. So to consider the holy name as an ordinary sound, or to consider the Supreme Lord to be equal to other demigods, all these categories of people are supposed to possess a hellish mentality, and a person who thinks in this way is certainly a resident of hell. So in reference to this today's sloka, one should not consider a Vaishnava from any particular caste background. So Vaishnavas are already Brahmanas, but Brahmanas need not be Vaishnavas because they have not reached that Vaishnava platform. So when a person, this is a quote from Srimad Bhagavatam itself, when a person is born as an ordinary being, human being, he undergoes a purificatory process. We call it as Janoi, wearing a sacred thread. That is the time he gets a second birth. First birth may be from the parents on a material platform, but the real birth is when he takes a sacred thread from a spiritual master. That time he sees himself in a new light and seeks direction for spiritual progress. So he has approached a spiritual master and takes instruction from him. And the spiritual master also accepts only disciples who are very, very sincerely in their inquiries and gives them a sacred thread. So this way one becomes a Dvija or a twice born. Then he starts studying the Vedas, and after becoming well versed in the Vedas, one becomes a Vipra. A Vipra or a scholar is a learned person who has well studied the Vedas, and he is supposed to realize absolute truth and make further progress until he reaches the Vaishnava stage. So a Brahmana may be learned, but not necessarily he must be in the Vaishnava stage. The Vaishnava stage is the postgraduate status of a Brahmana. That means if a Brahmana is a graduate, Vaishnava is a postgraduate. So a progressive Brahmana must necessarily become a Vaishnava, because a Vaishnava is already a self-realized soul, learn the Brahmana. That means Brahmanas are necessarily not self-realized. There may be exceptions, but in general they are not self-realized. But a Vaishnava is already self-realized. One more example is about Sukadeva Goswami. He was a Vaishnava from the beginning. So there was no need for him to even undergo the process of Varnashrama institution. So if one becomes a Vaishnava if he is accepted by another first-class Vaishnava or Uttamadhikari Vaishnava. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has also given some classifications in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's a different type of a classification when there is a different discussion between another devotee. I don't remember his full name, Uddamanta Khan or something like that, and he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu what is the identity of a Vaishnava. So Mahaprabhu concluded that discussion stating that even if one utters the name Krishna even once, he can be considered as a Vaishnava. And one example is that Srila Haridas Thakur was born from a Mohammedan family, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the exalted position as a Namacharya, because even though he was born in a Mohammedan family, he was, due to his chanting of the holy name of the Lord throughout the day, he was given the title as Namacharya. Acharya means who sets by example. There is also a quote in second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in which the sloka says anyone is a Kerata, or there are many sabkas, Andhra, Pulinda, Yavana, Kasha, even such lower classes can be delivered to the highest transcendental position by the mercy of the Vaishnavas or the spiritual masters. So in the beginning of the class I mentioned that there are these stages of realizing the Lord, Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Normally the Brahmanas end up at the Brahman stage, but Vaishnavas, they ultimately worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, which is supposed to be the highest level of realization. Another classification is if someone not only has knowledge but is able to clear all doubts if questioned about the absolute truth, he is considered to be even a better Vaishnava. Further, there may be a learned Brahmana Vaishnava who can explain clearly and eradicate all doubts, but if he does not follow the Vaishnava principles, he is not situated on a higher level. Therefore, one must clear all doubts and simultaneously be situated in the Brahmanical characteristics. Therefore, the point is that one should be situated in a Brahmanical platform, but he must be in a position to clear all doubts. And one other important point is that generally we see even Brahmanas from South India and other places, they reach a stage of worshipping at Shantarasa, neutrality with awe and reverence. But our Vaishnava Sampradaya takes the devotees to the higher rasas like Dasya Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Vatsya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa, etc. By the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we got exposed to these rasas. We have an understanding of these rasas. So that means, before concluding, the highest perfection of Brahmana is a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is one who knows the science of the absolute truth and also gives knowledge to the others and elevates the others to the science of God. So the conclusion is that Vaishnava is already a Brahmana, and in fact the highest stage of Brahmanical perfection is reached when one becomes a Vaishnava. That means one renders devotional service, one has already achieved perfection as a Vaishnava. Yes, there is a quote in the Hari Bhakti Vilasa which states that a Vaishnava is one who worships Lord Vishnu or Krishna and also takes up Vaishnava Diksha, which is Harinam Diksha for the Kali Yuga. That means, as per Haribhakta Vilasa, a Vaishnava is one who worships Lord Vishnu or Krishna and also takes a Vaishnava Diksha also. Some other places there is also a mention about taking tilaka and all those things, but we will not get into detail. In our Sampradaya, we believe in Vaishnava Diksha, that is the Harinam Diksha. Of course, thereafter one can get a Brahmanical Diksha also. So with this I conclude the class for the day. I'm sorry today the mic is not working, so I don't know if anybody is, I'm not able to get audience's voice. I need to get it checked today. So I may not be able to take questions. If anybody has got a question, they can send me a message. I'll try and reply personally, because I was told that there's an issue with the sound system. I'll try and get it sorted today. So with this I conclude the class for the day. So please send the question to me. Okay, I'll reply personally. Thank you all very much. Grantha Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada